All right, story time. Welcome to the channel again, ladies and gentlemen. This video is going to be a little special, chota rahega, but I am going to talk about my experience of being there on national television. How did it happen, and what did we really speak about? Keep watching the video, and I will tell you. Alright, so hua ye ki I have been in connect with Vishal sir for a long time, for a few years now. Vishal Gondal, who has started India Games back in 90s, is one of the pioneers of Indian gaming industry. He actually had a viewpoint, and we have been discussing this for a very long time about how Indian gaming industry can blossom by bringing in some policies where the other games outside India are dominating the Indian market and making a lot of revenue and all that sort. So he actually reached out to me a day before yesterday that there is a slot on national television where we can actually go and talk about it. So CNN News 18 reached out to him, and he actually got me a 2-minute slot on the channel in that show, which is called The Breakfast Club. It's a very popular show, by the way, and it was the very first time that I was on a national television at that scale. Iske pehle I have done like a show for Z Choice Thas, which is like a Marathi regional channel. But News 18, CNN News 18 is really big, and I'm fortunate enough that I got this opportunity. So that's how I've been placed on that slot to speak about the Indian gaming industry. It was not at all basis ki about me or about my interview or about my game. But again, it was great to see that they actually played Mukti's trailer right there when I was talking. So what was the whole agenda? The agenda was to speak about the Indian gaming industry and how we can actually put some points forward which can reach out to masses, right? So we spoke specifically about 4 things. The number one thing was this very point that bigger players who have been making games globally, they are dominating Indian market for a long time now. We have seen the success of PUBG, BGMI, and all these companies are not Indian, but they are still making huge revenues from India, taking back that money to their own countries. But the point was, there are barriers for us as developers who are making games in India and want to publish our games in China, for example. Let's talk about this one specific country called China. And if I want to make a game and I want to publish that game in China, I just can't do that. I have to tie up with a Chinese publisher to put my game in the Chinese market. So this is something that we also can do, because India is one of the topmost market when it comes to mobile games. It is going to lead in the next 2-3 years, right? We will be one of the biggest markets, or probably the only biggest market for mobile games. So like how Indian developers suffer to publish their games in China, we should actually keep some restrictions to other companies to actually publish their games in India. That was the whole point. And in fact, we are trying to do something like that. We are trying to bring some sort of limitations like these for other people outside India to make that load of money from India. So that was number one point. We spoke about that, and we are also working towards that. Number 2 was how the total revenues that you see in India. I think last year we had roughly around 3,000 or more than that crores. 3,000 to 4,000 crores of revenue was made from India, but majority of that was say around, if it's 3,000, roughly around 80 to 85 or 90% of the revenues were made from real money games. Nobody is against real money games. It's just that we'll need to actually move forward and try and grow the standard game making model also, where we are making games for PC and console, free to play for mobile, freemium games, and all these games which does not include real money into it. The pure play games that we are talking about, we should actually bring in a lot more policies and things, and tax savings, or a lot of other things that can actually boost this particular sector. So that was number two. Number three is the talent versus expertise. We've been talking about how India has all the talent in the world to make better games, but the thing is, the expertise is missing, and that will come through collaborative efforts or creating an ecosystem, right? Like I gave an example of how Sony is basically helping us to create that sort of ecosystem. Take a look at this one clip from the news.
We tried raising funds before, but we couldn't. But then last year, Sony PlayStation came in India, and they handpicked 5 studios from India. Now, their idea of building an ecosystem is completely different. You can't give someone $10 million and tell them to create a AAA title, a bigger game. You need that kind of expertise and that technical support that bigger players can come in and support you with, which is what Sony is today doing with us. And that is how we are trying to create, an exceptional quality, visual quality game from India, which can dominate global market. So if we are building it today, tomorrow we'll create that culture, that DNA within the studio, which can then spread across different verticals, right? People from our company would start their own companies, and that's how the actual ecosystem will build, and people will start creating more and more games, right? So that ecosystem is missing. The third problem I feel is the institutions and the colleges. There is a very few so if you talk about engineering, right, you have an engineering college in India where a student goes and becomes an engineer. A for MBBS also, you go there and you become a doctor, right? There's nothing in India where you go and become a game developer. So, there are a lot of institutes which are just struggling to create that curriculum which can help you become something. There are a lot of institutes which can actually, which have these titles like game design and development course, but at the end of the day, they teach just the artwork, which is not the reality of the Indian gaming industry. And that's what, I personally also have been teaching, and which also have recently started on, social media channels where we try to put out content which belongs to the industry, which is the real practical use of it, right? So government should basically start creating these incubators, say accelerators, hackathons, and also inculcate that understanding from the school levels itself, which can then eventually 5-10 years later we'll have a great amount of talent from India.
So yeah, that is how it is going to amplify. You just can't actually give somebody money and just tell them to go and make a AAA game. It doesn't happen like that. You need expertise. You need that knowledge sharing to happen. We need that sort of expertise and knowledge sharing to happen within the community so that we can build bigger games. And I'm very sure that in the next 3 to 4 to 5 years, we'll have amazing titles from India which are huge and probably dominate the global market. Nobody wants to dominate. So it's just that we need to make games that can put India on the global map. Everybody should look at India as a very competitive market, or players or developers, right? Like we see at the West, right? And the fourth and the most important thing was the educational angle. We need to start inculcating this knowledge or the learnings at the school stage itself, where kids can actually start picking up these tools and start making stuff which probably will help them be better at making games later on, right? We have seen a lot of popular, very well-known institutes in India who are fooling kids by naming their courses to say game design or game development, and eventually just teaching them 3D Max and Maya which basically are art tools. We know that because we interview these people day in day out, because we are hiring and we interview these people and they claim that they're game developers, and ends up that they have a resume with only art assets into it. Now, if you look at this, it's very brutal, because they've spent like a year, 2 years just learning something which they assumed will make them a game designer, but that's not the case, right? And then at the end of the day, they end up spending a lot of money and time and efforts into it, and no gains out of it. So the educational angle has to be very strong. Industry folks have started talking about it. Things are moving into that direction, which is a great part. So yeah, all of these things put together, this is what we spoke about eventually on that panel. Really enjoyed it. Really hope that it helps a lot of people, and the message was put out very well. I got a lot of feedback on my LinkedIn and my personal messages that it was crisp, and the right message was gone out to the public. I hope I get a lot more opportunities like this, so that I can help, play my part to grow this industry, which I've been doing for the last few years, right? So that was it. That's my experience. I thoroughly enjoyed, and I was really psyched about it. It's one of the happiest days of my life, and 2025 actually started with a big bang. I hope more and more things come our way in the next year. So let's go. Thank you for watching the video. If you have discovered this video for the first time, or this channel for the first time, do subscribe to the channel. Thank you. See you guys in the next episode.